Welcome to the Wise Women Collective Show.
Join hosts Lin Schussler Williams, Holly Hartman, and Brooke Haynes with their inspiring guests for conversations that fuel personal growth, career success, and community impact.
Tune in to connect and amplify your power, because when women rise, the world follows.
Hi, everybody. We're so excited you're here with Wise Women Collective. I'm Lin Schussler Williams, and I want to introduce you to Brooke Haynes and Holly Hartman, my partners in this endeavor, and our guest, Jeannie Dougherty. Jeannie, I'm so glad you're with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're so glad you're here. So, everybody, Jeannie is multi-passionate like the rest of us. So you're not going to hear just about one thing today. We're going to have opportunities to talk about all kinds of things. So, Jeannie, I would love it if you would just tell our listeners kind of who you are, where you are in this world, what your major pieces of this multi-passionate puzzle are.
Sure. So the easiest thing I like to say is that I don't call myself this, but my clients call me this. I'm a money whisperer, which means that I can find where your money is hidden. So I help people rewire their money brains so they get out of money burnout and they get more than just controlling their finances. They get their money to actually work for them, right? Wouldn't that be great? And the most common things that my clients achieve are they make more money, they shatter their own glass ceilings, and they lose that financial stress. And part of my money story is that both of my parents passed away from Alzheimer's. And so I know what it's like to be isolated. I know what it's like to be an outlier because my parents died when I was still young. I still am young. And I've created a caregiver conference to help caregivers when I realized due to the pandemic, caregivers were dying at a faster rate than the general population. And I thought, this is not good. Particularly since a lot of resources had to shut down and they have not returned. So that's really my give back. My passion project is to give back and make sure that caregivers who are often treated invisibly are no longer invisible. They have a voice and they're seen and they are given resources and education and tools, which I never had.
Yes, absolutely. So important. And, all of us here have a connection to caregiving as well. And, my family's going through it right now, and it is just so important for people to have access to ideas and people who know answers that they don't know and all those things. We're so excited to hear more about that caregiver conference. So I want to know a little bit, though, about how you got to be the money whisperer. Like, how'd that happen? Like, that's so important for women too, Jeannie. I think, most of the programming and conditioning that we get as women, which is kind of my area, that stuff doesn't support us. And what you're talking about are the ideas that do. So how'd that come about for you?
So I would say I was above average with money management, in my personal life. And I didn't even think of owning a business until my mother actually got sick. I thought I might have a little more flexibility. And no, not exactly, but that was the thought originally. But it was really after her death is when I realized that she had her estate was financially exploited by another family member. And what I wanted, because we went to court, we lost. There was nothing we could do at this point legally. What I wanted is to know why this betrayal happened so deeply, because this was another family member who took the money. And so I had been going to dance classes and for my own stress. And when I walked into my dance studio one day, there was a flyer on the wall about dance and money. I don't remember the title. And it was for 4 days. It was 2.5 hours away. And I went, I should go. And I did. And I absolutely loved it. And I met my very first emotional and behavioral money coach, which is how I'm trained. I'm not a budget or investment coach. But when I met them, I finally understood why people get stuck about their money, why they make really bad decisions, even when they know it's going to hurt somebody, and also how people change and how they thrive instead of just like, can we just make sure the bills are paid? Like they can actually thrive and do the things that they've always wanted to do in their business. So,
That's amazing. What a great story. And I love how connected to the caregiving piece it is as well. No wonder you do both those things, because they're completely connected in your life and in your experience. What a sweet story. So Holly and Brooke, I want to invite you guys to pop in and ask a question at any point. Holly?
Well, I just, in that story that you were sharing, and Lynn noted it as well, is I think this is, when we talk about like multi-passionate women, it's really about being a holistic human being, and that we're living this life through an experience. And what I heard in your story is that you saw a sign and you were like, you were curious, let's do that. And then what doors opened for you after that really changed your life. But the impact of caregiving, and then how do you show up for yourself in self-care, and then another door opened up, and then that opened up a career path for you. And I think for our listeners to kind of hear that's like permission to listen to those nudges, to look for those doorways that are opening up. And I love that you took it, and how our lives converge when we allow that to happen instead of compartmentalize, that you can do all of those things. And so thank you for sharing that with us. Was there a reluctancy at all in that story for you, or how did you then leap from that learning at that one session? How long did it take you to start going, okay, this is a new career path for me?
So I'm so glad you described it as like a door opened and I went through. When I started my own business, I did it because I was relentlessly being harassed at work as a woman. And I just said, you know what, I've been here, I've been there. It's the same type of men who are doing this. And then you get the women who follow right along. Oh, well, they're not that bad. Well, for you, but for anyone else, thanks. So I decided to start my own business. And I think that was a smart move because I was fed up. And I was like, this isn't going anywhere for me. So the best thing for me to do is to go out on my own and do the work that I know I can do and do it well. So that was a game changer. Like, to me, that was a game changing conversation. But the dance thing, like, it's funny. Every time I tell this story, everyone's like, oh my God, I want to go to that dance workshop. Like but it wasn't like that. I just kind of, I think I should go. And yet so many people in our own community refuse to go. They were like angry that it was done. And dance should be about spirituality. It should never be about money. Like, why would we do that? And you're like, well, you're broke all the time. Wouldn't you want to find another way? And I didn't decide to make it a career path at all. I went for that first 4-day workshop. And then I took a year of personal and professional development working with a money coach. And I went, oh, is this what this is about? This makes so much more sense. And so then I said, well, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'd be really good at it. And I would like to do it. Like that was the permission based, was like, I think I'm going to do it. Like, it wasn't like, should I go ask 20 people and see what they think? Like, who cares what 20 other people think? They're not in my shoes anyway.
Yeah. Amen. Can we just get a yes to that? And I hope all our listeners who tend toward the let me go ask 20 people for permission or their opinion or whatever, hear the power in trusting your own, right? That's just a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing. Well, so now I want to make sure we give the Caregiver Conference some time too, Jeannie, because it's amazing to me. I guess it's partly, I grew up, I'm at the end of the baby boomers, right? That's sure. My age range. And I grew up hearing about what a huge bunch of people we are, right? Like in my teenage and early 20s, the baby boomers were like this huge generation that was coming along. And so there's so many of us hitting the age when our parents need caregivers, or we need caregivers, because we also span a couple of decades, right? So I think it's just one of those topics that its time has come. And then that would have happened anyway. And then COVID, and then like all these other things you mentioned. So, how do you see the kind of the timing and the placement of our need to wrap our arms around caregiving how to be it and do it, and how important all that is.
So I'm a bit tough. This is not news to me, but this is how I deal with problems. I'm like, let's go find a way. So when I left, the corporate world, I was like, I'm too wise for this. I don't play these games. I'm here to do a job. If you don't like it, I understand. It's my time to go. But with the caregiving situation, that was such a humbling and powerful experience for both of my parents. And what I found was so interesting was how people just don't get it. Like, I've had so many conversations with other people who are, their parents or maybe getting up in age, or they notice things, but they just walk away from it. And I just thought, oh God, I didn't get the luxury of walking away. I wish I could have in more ways than one, but I couldn't. I kind of got dragged into it, and then I got stuck in certain spots. So I feel like when I looked at the data and realizing that caregivers were dying at a faster rate, I was like, this was the previous administration, that's the current administration. I knew at that point we were on our own. And so when I see what's happening at the government level, because I'm just outside of Washington, D.C., so it's very, again, close to home, what is happening. And, a lot of data about women is being wiped. A lot of data and information that's vital to our history and currently about multiple races is being wiped.
Right.
And, where do you want to put your stake in the ground? And I thought, I know it's going to be hard, but I would rather have a legacy of trying to do something for people I don't even know. It has nothing to do with your voting. It has nothing to do with whether you have vaccines or you put on a mask. This is like trying to help people survive. And if they're not interested, I get that, because, survival sounds a little scary. It kind of triggers people's money brains. I understand that. But if we don't do anything as individuals, we've done nothing.
Right.
And I'm just not going to stand there. That's not where I'm going to die on that hill. I did nothing. I will go do something.
Right. I love that so much. And I think that's an inspiring thing for our listeners to hear too, that, whatever your thing is, right? It doesn't have to be Jeannie's thing or my thing or Brooke's thing or Holly's thing, but whatever your thing is, how do we pick that hill that we are going to stand on? And how are we going to, do the things that, you said, I would rather try and let my legacy be, I tried and it didn't work, than not try and not do anything. Like, yes, so big a yes. And I think women really need to hear that today for all the reasons you outlined too, right? We need to understand what's happening in the world and where it can affect us in a big way. And, I remember the Dalai Lama said, Western women, we're going to save the world. And
we're trying.
We're working on it, right? But that's not going to happen if we just put our blinders on and stay focused on the little pieces of our lives and don't have people like you who are taking that bigger view and looking at where can I make a difference. Exactly. Somebody who does that a bit is Brooke Haynes. So I know she's got something to say in here.
So I have a question about the conference. So is the conference about the ins and outs and the hows or is it about how to be a caregiver? Like, or, what kind of things show up at the conference?
That is brilliant, Brooke. Thank you for sharing that, because that means that you're actually paying attention. Because a lot of times people are like, caregiver conference, is it in Orlando? Because I would love to go to a conference in Orlando. I'm like, do you know anything about caregivers? They're in the car, they're at work, they're at home, they're at a medical appointment, they're picking up prescription stuff at the pharmacy, figuring out why the wheelchair isn't working. Like, they're a little busy they'd like to go to Orlando, but who has the time?
Right.
So originally the plan was, and it still is, but each year will be different. There's going to be a different focus. Why? Because we're evolving. Instead of what data, which takes like, 5 to 10 years, and I would say a healthier, we're pro statistics, type of, life that we're living right now. Instead of just wiping it clean, we'll just pretend it doesn't exist. Okay, that doesn't work either. But when you have that kind of information, it takes so long to get it. And then once you have it, what do you do with it? Well, that's what the number crunchers are supposed to do. These big, like the National Caregiving, there's alliances and institutes and all these things. And that's great. I'm glad they're doing it because we need that information, as well as insurance companies have all this data. They already have it. But what we don't have is a plan. What we don't have is strategy. What we know is that if your dad gets sick and you have to take him to the doctor, if your state will even pay you to do caregiving, they will only pay you for the hours of active caregiving time. So again, it's like, here's what the system is doing, and then here's what a caregiver does. And so I said, well, okay, so the first year I did the big stuff, the money, the legal, scamming, all that good stuff, caregiving. And last year I niched down. I know. Should we niche down, Lynn? I decided to do it. I said, take a risk. And I talked just strictly about caregivers' minds and bodies. I left the spirituality out because I didn't want it to become such a woo fest that we forgot about, is anyone stretching their back? Does anyone know how to get themselves out of a chair? Is anyone getting their sleep? Because those are the hallmarks of danger for caregivers. So I did that this last, and it sold out, and my overflow tickets sold out. And I was like, whoa, how did this happen? And then I paid attention to some data that was sent to me for this year. And I had angry parents, very angry parents yelling at me in emails and sometimes in Zoom rooms. And I was kind of like, I don't need to be rude. I'm not a parent, but when you're talking about caregiving, not a caregiver, but caregiving isn't, kind of that's part of the job as a parent. And you're actually seeing your child hit those milestones eventually. They eventually get there, even if it's, a situation. But they're like, no, you don't understand. The resources have been cut. We're expected to be a dual income. How do we do this? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And our families are smaller. So it's not like your sister, your brother, your aunt, your grandma can do the things that they used to do. And people are also having children older. So again, the caregiving piece becomes older. So what I thought about was that I was hearing from 3 different kinds of parents: single parents who are literally doing it on their own and doing a pretty good job, might I add, in many ways. I was hearing from parents who have a child who's got an illness, not necessarily a terminal one, but kidney, heart disease, some type of issue. This is like a lifelong thing that they're going to deal with. And last one are parents of neurodiverse children who were just like, my kid's just not doing what is the average or the normal. And it is very hard to get them to do a lot of things that they're going to need to do for themselves, and they just don't want to do it. And I thought about that, and I was like, that's a good way to actually segue this year. Year 3, we'll expand. And so this year it's going to be 2 days. It will be live. Everything else is pre-recorded. So everyone will have to, give me some extra support and mojo. But it's going to be live, and it's going to be day 1 is going to be obviously for caregivers as aging loved ones, what we've got to do. But day 2 is going to be open up for the parents. And very excited. I found somebody that I've been looking for to do cybersecurity, to talk about the actual pragmatics that you need to do to keep yourself safe. Because I mean, every expert can sit there and do this, but until you hear, and then you're like, but my sister's cousin's got the situation. You're like, here's an actual resource. You could talk to somebody. Oh my gosh. Here's a book you could actually buy if you're like, I don't even want to bother. Because, everyone's different. So different learning styles, what they can afford or what they think they want. And I find when you expand like this and you go into the unknown territory, this has been my mantra for 2025. Relax into the unknown. And see what happens.
I love that. Relax into the unknown and see what happens. Just be willing, right? Be willing to be open and see where it goes. And all of that is so important. I'm so excited for this 3rd conference, Jeannie. It is powerful and wonderful. And we all need to pay attention. And, you got me thinking about all the different ways and times I've been a caregiver. From the time I was 15 years old and my mother and I went to visit my aunt and uncle's house while he had to go on a a conference and she was in a post-surgical situation, right? To, you know, when my eldest child, who's now 29, was in 8th grade and she was in home hospital for 8 months, right? And then now I have a 92-year-old mother-in-law with dementia who needs 24/7. So you know, you made me think about this evolution across my life of what caregiving has meant and all the different ways that, you know, support was or wasn't there along those journeys. It's just hugely important for us to be aware of. And it's incredible. Holly, what have you got to add to this? I know you have something. Like, I'm thinking of all the things Holly's about to say.
Well, it's similar to what you were saying. What I heard you say was the seasons of caregiving, because I think oftentimes when people hear caregiving, they think, oh, it's me taking care of my elderly parents, and that is what caregiving is.
Mm-hmm.
But it is really, especially for women who majoritively take on that role, it is not exclusive to women, but we tend to take it on, is that it is a season of, like, I remember my oldest, who's 20, and I have a 9-year-old, and he looked at me one day and said, you know, Mom, by the time JP is out of the house, you will have had children in your home for 32 years. And I was like, that is a long time. And while my children know that I love them, I was not necessarily somebody that thought I would have children. And so to say that I have, that's 32 years of intentional caregiving, and a mother who also just passed in November, who had 20 years of health issues that we had to navigate. And so, oh, you're gonna make me cry. Okay, no, I'm good. But it is that whole season of life. And what I heard in your story, what you shared, and I just want to commend you, celebrate, is that you were listening to people. You heard it, even if it came at a way that may have been hard to receive at the time. However it came to you, you were able to look at that and feel it, sense it, and go, okay, what can I do with this information to then present to the world, to change the world in that way. And that's really what all of us do here with the Wise Woman Collective. Is we're impact-driven women. We're feeling the friction or the pain source of whatever it is, and we're going to alchemize that crap to make it into something else, so then we can make a change in the world. So you are right in the right room, and we're just grateful to be here. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Jeannie, we have just a few minutes left, and I want to say, people are going to want to know where to find you, and we'll put all this stuff in the show notes and all of that, but just tell people where they can go for you and for resources and whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So I have 2 websites, because why do one? I say, right. You want to talk about niching down? Why do one? So the first one is my name, JeannieDougherty.com. That's where you can get all of the caregiving information. And if you'd like to know more about the money piece, it's globalmoneycoach.com. And so I did this, you know, again, because I realized my one website, I think, couldn't have another page. Like, it was so bogged down with all this passion that I was like, it needs another website.
Well, beautiful. And is the conference easy to find from one of those or both of those?
It will be. There will be a landing page that will be created. Right now, it's March 31st today. So, and the conference isn't happening until November 19th and 20th. So we'll get that up and running definitely by the summer. And that's, you know, we'll start selling tickets, and then people will start showing up. And heavy duty promotion starts in October. Why do I wait till October? It's because I realize that nobody cares during the summer about aging loved ones, unless you are doing the active caregiving. People are like, I can't even, I've got to go deal with this. Mm-hmm. So I've just learned, don't put yourself there. Just start when people are ready to pay attention to you. That's, to me, learning from your market, which we all need to do.
Absolutely. And you're talking to 3 women who produce a conference. And so we totally know that, you know, like one of the speakers at our Be More conference said to me a couple of weeks ago, oh, so why aren't we doing this or that to talk about it? And it was like, because nobody's going to buy a ticket till the last 2 days anyway. So just, you know, yeah, we get it. We get it. Well, beautiful. Jeannie, thank you for being with us and sharing your story with the Wise Women Collective. Brooke and Holly, feel free to unmute and Jeannie, we just want people to know that your story is worth hearing. We're bringing great women like you together to hear their stories, and we're excited that we got to share this with you. And so thanks everybody for being listening, and we hope that you'll tune in to wisewomencollectivehq.com, where you'll find our community, you'll find our free events, you'll find the podcast episodes and radio show and YouTube channel and all the fun stuff. Jeannie, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for joining us on the Wise Women Collective Show.
We trust you're leaving inspired, empowered, and ready to make a difference. Keep the momentum going. Join our Wise Women Collective community at wisewomencollectivehq.com.
Connect with other women, amplify your power, and together we'll continue to rise. Until next time, stay strong and connected, because when women rise, the world follows.